are we still upholding the colonial setup, or have we evolved our own system? Because I want to believe that, let's even believe that there was nothing in Africa before the European came. Let's even accept that that is the situation. Now, we have been living with the European system for how many years now? Is it favoring us? Are we continuing with it? Are we ready to fight for our own? What is the next step now? Are we just comfortable, or are we thinking, because this one will be an error, that one day the European will realize that, okay, these people have suffered enough. Now let's set them free. Because if we are thinking that, it will never happen. Not in 1,000 years. So are we still following the model that the colonialists set up, which, like I've always said in this podcast, they set it up looking at Africa as a satellite, meaning Africa was not considered as a state, as a system. It was only responding to their system. And even this, we can understand it. If you have slaves, if you have prisoners, you don't want them to be free. It doesn't depend on the European or the Westerner to set African free. We cannot, that is too expensive as an opinion to hold. So do we have a strategy? Do we have a plan to be free?
A plan to be free is there. A plan is to be free. Apparently, the plan to be free is there, but in a few individuals who are here and there, scattered here and there. And as I mentioned before, that lawfare, it is the use of the law and the organs of state, the institutions that are supposed to be independent as a pocket knife. So what happens is that when you stand up today and you talk about making sure that your people are free and your country is free, you are vilified by the same law. You are delegitimized. You are considered a corrupt individual. You are character assassinated, with the media playing a major role on that. This is a phenomenon that we have witnessed over the years. This is a situation that we've witnessed over the years with all African leaders that have stood up and said we need to make sure that we empower our people. We need to make sure that our people are capacitated to be free economically and to charter their way in the economic space without being dictated to by the colonialists. Now, there is a deliberate thing that is meant to make sure that our people are free. But we need to understand the context first. All African countries, when they were at the brink of political independence, they had to go through negotiations. I will take an example of Zimbabwe in this case. In 1977, 1978, 1979, there were conferences and conferences that were taking place. What were the conferences? I want to use Zimbabwe as a case study at the moment because it's quite vivid, and it's the best example that we can use now. An example of what colonialists can do to a country which decides to be economically independent and reverse the affront of the colonialism, the subjugation that is imposed by colonialism, etc., etc. Now, the political parties in Zimbabwe had armies at the armed wing. That is, we had the ZAPU, which had its own armed wing, which was called ZIPRA. We had ZANLA, which was the armed wing of ZANU. So these two combined to form what was called the Patriotic Front, for the sake and the purposes of negotiation, and for the purposes of the ceasefire and the charting of the way forward after independence. So who was the major obstacle in the negotiations for the independence of Zimbabwe as they tried to come up with a new constitution? It was Britain. Britain did not want a complete transference of power in the new Zimbabwe. They did not want the new government to form its own independent military, to form its independent intelligence structure, to form its independent security security organs. Why? Because they knew that once these people manage to have transfer of power, they will be in a position to defend their policies militarily if the situation required them to do so. Now, the other obstacles that they came with was the land question. Remember, these people went to war for 17 years. They were not fighting for the right to walk in a street. They were not fighting for the right to drink certain beer. They were fighting for land. They were not fighting for jobs. They were fighting for land, because that is what was taken forcibly from them, and that is what prompted the resistance and the revolution in the first place. Now let's come to the Lancaster House Constitution. The Lancaster House Constitution, what does it say? It has a clause on land, and it says the Zimbabwean land cannot be redistributed for the next coming 10 years after independence. In other words, the government has to embark on what is called a willing buyer, willing seller basis. So the government has to buy land. Imagine the African has to buy his own land from a colonialist. And the Patriotic Front, that is Robert Mugabe and Joshua Nkomo, they said, no, we cannot buy land. We cannot buy our own land because it was taken by force of arms. We never sold our land. Where did the Europeans get that same land that you want us to buy from them? So the Thatcher government, the British government said, under Margaret Thatcher, we will avail the funds for you to buy the land.